Hello, fourth graders. Happy Tuesday. It's Miss Brisson here. And before we start the reading lesson of the day, I want you to make sure that you have either your whiteboard and dry erase marker, or you have a piece of paper and a pencil, or your fourth grade notebook, because you are going to be writing some things down during this reading lesson today that you will then use during your independent assignment. So you do need something to write with and something to write on during this lesson. So if you want to pause the video real quick and go get that, if you don't have it, please do so. So as readers, it is important that we ask ourselves questions before, during, and after we're reading a text. For example, before we begin reading a text, we might ask ourselves some questions like, what do I know about this genre, the author, or the topic of this text? What are some questions or some wonderings that I have about this topic? Or what do I know or what have I experienced that's related to this topic? So those are some questions that we might ask ourselves before we even start to read a text. So I have chosen this book, Moonshot, The Flight of Apollo 11, and it's one of my favorite books, and it's actually literary nonfiction, and that's a genre you probably haven't heard much about. Literary nonfiction is kind of a blend of both fiction and nonfiction. Obviously, the flight of the Apollo 11 is true, so there are a lot of true facts in this book. But what's neat about this is that it also follows the story of a character, a fiction character. So that's where that fiction piece comes in. So it's kind of a blend of both fiction and nonfiction. It's going to give us true facts, but it's also going to tell a story as it's giving us those true facts. So I'm just going to I'm going to have you take a look at the cover, and so you can see it is a Caldecott winner, which is Best Illustrated Children's Book Award. So this book has some great illustrations. And I want you to just think for a moment about space travel, NASA. I want you to think, what do you already know about this topic? Got kind of a great illustration right in here of a spacecraft. What do you know about space or launching spacecrafts into space? Just want you to think about that for a minute. And what I have here is I have what's called a KWL chart. And I'm sure you've seen a KWL chart before. It stands for things that we know about the topic before reading it, things that we want to know about the topic as we're reading. Sometimes we call those wonderings or things we're curious about. And then when we're done reading the book, what did we learn about this topic based on what we just read? So this tracker sheet you are actually going to be doing on your Google Classroom under the assignments page under classwork for day 7. So you are going to be completing this on Google Classroom and you're going to be typing in your answers. So that's why right now on your whiteboard or on your piece of paper, I want you to be writing down with me as we do the know and the want to know together right now. So I want you to just jot down some things that you already know about this topic. So you can pause the video and just jot some things down. So what I already know is I know that NASA is a program that had space launches. So I'm going to put NASA, space launch. I also know that a lot of these launches were based out of Florida at a place called Cape Canaveral. And then I know that astronauts are in these spacecrafts. They are the ones that go to space, that walk on the moon. So I'm just going to put astronauts. to the moon. And I'm predicting that this has to do with actually going to the moon. We've got Moonshot as our title, and then we have the moon right there on the cover. So, like I said, you can pause the video and write down 3 things that you already know about this topic. And then there's some things that you might be wondering. What are some questions that you might have as you're reading or before you're reading? We like to ask questions before and during our reading. So I'm wondering, how long does it take to get to the moon? So how many miles is it? How long does it take? How long does it take to travel to the moon? And that is a question, so I'm going to put a question mark. I'm also wondering, does this spacecraft have a name? I'm really curious, like, what is it like when they are living in the space shuttle, when they're headed to the moon? What is life like for an astronaut? So you probably have some different wonderings or questions or things that you want to learn. So please pause the video and jot down 3 things that you want to know as you are reading Moonshot with me. Okay, so we have part 1 and part 2 completed of our KWL chart. As I said, the learned portion we can't do until after we've read. So let's get started. Moonshot, the flight of Apollo 11. Great illustrations. High above there is the moon, cold and quiet, no air, no life, but glowing in the sky. Here below, there are 3 men who clothe themselves in special clothes, who click and lock hands in heavy gloves, who click lock heads in large round helmets. It is summer here in Florida, hot and near the sea. But now these men are dressed for colder, stranger places. They walk with stiff and awkward steps, in suits not made for Earth. They have studied and practiced and trained and said goodbye to family and friends. If all goes well, they will be gone for 1 week, gone where no one has been. So yes, and like I said, remember that is in Cape Canaveral, Florida. And one of my questions was actually just answered. So it says that they will be gone for a week, traveling to the moon and back to Earth. We've got our 3 astronauts. Here's a great illustration. Their 2 small spaceships are Columbia and Eagle. So those are the names of the 2 spaceships. They sit atop the rocket that will raise them into space, a monster of a machine. It stands 30 stories. It weighs 6 million pounds, a tower full of fuel and fire, and valves and pipes and engines too big to believe, but built to fly the mighty, massive Saturn V. So we know that there's 2 spaceships, the Columbia and the Eagle, and put together we've got Saturn V. And that's really cool. I love the names, the Columbia and the Eagle. I think that's really neat. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my head. That's also something I learned. I might jot that down later on my KWL chart in the L section. The astronauts squeeze into the Columbia's sideways seats, lying on their backs, facing toward the sky. Neil Armstrong on the left, Michael Collins on the right, Buzz Aldrin in the middle. And you can see that they're facing up. Click, and they fasten straps. Click, and the hatch is sealed. There they wait while the Saturn hums beneath them. So we now know the names of the 3 astronauts, and you might have heard of them. Neil Armstrong is probably the most famous of them, the one that you might have heard of that walked on the moon, but we're going to keep reading about that. Near the rocket, in launch control, and far away in Houston, that's in Texas, so that's far from Florida. In mission control, there are numbers, screens, and charts, ways of watching and checking every piece of the rocket and ships, the fuel, the valves, the pipes, the engines, the beats of the astronauts' hearts. As the countdown closes, each man watching is asked the question, go, no, go? And each man watching answers back, go, go, go. Apollo 11 is go for launch. Ten, 9, 8, 7. Ignition sequence started. Flames push hard against the pad, every second pushing harder. 6, 5, 4. But still, the rocket does not rise. Mighty arms hold it steady. Hold it till the countdown finishes. 3, 2, 1, 0. And you can see there's people watching because you can be a spectator. You can watch. You were able to watch as they launched these spacecrafts, which is really cool. Lift off! The rocket is released. It rises foot by foot. It rises pound by pound. It's pretty cool. So that's at the bottom of the rocket on the ground. You can see the explosion. It climbs the summer sky. It rides a flapping, cracking flame and shakes the air and shakes the earth and makes a mighty roar. Here you can see it over there. There's where the launch pad, and there is it going up into space. Armstrong, Collins, Aldrin ride the fire and thunder, pressed deep in their seats, their bodies as heavy as clay. The rocket below them sheds parts as it soars. Bolts explode, engines ignite, which means light on fire. First stage, second stage, escape tower, gone. The rocket flies lighter, the rocket flies faster. In 12 minutes' time, it's 100 miles high. You can see. Then, after an orbit around the Earth, to talk with Mission Control, to check the course, to check the rocket and the ships, the rocket's last stage fires again, pushing the astronauts on. So that the rocket then detaches, it comes off, and it's just the spacecraft. And that's supposed to happen. And when the Earth has rolled beneath and rolled behind and let the astronauts go, the Saturn's last stage opens wide and releases the Columbia, which was the rocket's tip. So this was just the tip of the rocket. And also Eagle, hidden till now, a stranger ship, more bug than bird, a black and gold enfolded spider. Michael Collins, Columbia's pilot, turns her back around. and locks Columbia to Eagle. So then it locks together. Then Armstrong, Collins, Aldrin leave the last of the Saturn and travel on in their two small ships, joined together, flown as one. They go rushing into darkness, flying toward the moon, far away, cold and quiet. No air, no life, but glowing in the sky. What do you think it's like? What do you think is going through their minds right now as they are in almost this like deep darkness, up in space, no one around, with a mission to go to the moon? How do you think they're feeling? On board Columbia and Eagle, Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin unclick gloves, unclick helmets, unclick the straps that hold them down, and float inside their small ships, their home for a week. Here, there is no up or down. An astronaut can spin in air and turn a floor into a wall or a ceiling to a floor. Here, on those sometimes ceilings, walls, and floors, everywhere, there are straps and screens and gauges and buttons, handles, hoses, and switches. Switches, lots of switches. There are food and clothes packed into corners. There are flight plans, flashlights, pens, cameras, and they float too. They drift from hands and pockets. That's why there's Velcro everywhere, for holding things so they stay put, because there's no gravity to hold anything down in space. Here, where everything floats, it takes some skill to eat a meal. That ham salad sandwich, watch the crumbs. Soup, it comes in a bag, dry as dust. Fix the bag to the water gun, fill it, mix it, stir it. Cream of chicken, not too bad. Better than peanut cubes. Here, where everything floats, it takes some skill to go to sleep. There are no beds, no pillows, no night or day. There is always, though, the hum of circuits, the whir of machines, the thought of where you are, and the thought of where you're going. So that's interesting. I didn't really know that they had all of their food in bags and pouches. I'm really curious what it tasted like. Yeah, so that's something I might jot down for what I'm wondering as I'm reading. And one more thing. Here, where everything floats, it takes some skill to use the toilet. It takes pipes and hoses and bags, and there's no fresh air outside the window. After a week, this small home will not smell so good. This is not why anyone wants to become an astronaut. So as you can imagine, it's probably not going to smell that great by the end of the week. But still ahead, there's the moon, cold and quiet, no air, no life, but glowing in the sky, glowing and growing. It takes them in, it pulls them close. At the moon, Collins stays in Columbia, high above, a single circling soul. Armstrong and Aldrin leave in Eagle and take it low and lower. They have just enough time and just enough fuel. They have a plan and a place to land, a chosen safe site among the craters. So there's Collins in the Columbia. He's like the controller. And then Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are in the Eagle flying down to the moon. Now friends and strangers in the distance, down below, stay up late, get up early, and stop as one to watch and wait. There are only maps and models to see. There is no camera that can show the landing far away, because this was in the 1960s. But what strange sounds there are to hear, whistles, beeps, and static, strange new words, and quick clipped news of altitudes, that's how high they are, and speeds, leaping across the dark between mission control and the men who are taking the Eagle to land on the moon, who are going where no one has ever been. See them watching the TV. On board Eagle, Aldrin calls out information while Armstrong steers the ship. They fly low and lower, looking for their landing site. But now Eagle, they see, has flown too far. They are miles from where they mean to be, and below their small and spindly ship, they see no level place. Only broken stone and rock, only shadows in deep craters on the great and growing moon. Far from home and far from help, still steady, steady, the astronauts fly, till time and fuel are running out. I wonder what they're gonna do. Let's see. Then, there, clean and flat, not too far, 60 seconds left. Armstrong fires the rockets. Eagle slows and lower goes until a spray of dust, a bloom of moon, flowers up around her, slow and slower, low and lower, low and lower, landing. And far away where friends and strangers lean to listen, where friends and strangers lean to hear, there comes a distant voice, Armstrong calling from the moon, calm as a man who just parked a car. Houston, he says, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Armstrong is calm, but on Earth, they cheer. Then Armstrong and Aldrin climb down from the Eagle in heavy gloves, in large round helmets, in suits not made for Earth. So I just learned that it was that they landed the Eagle on the moon, and Neil Armstrong was the one that said, all right, we are here. That's something I might want to jot down on my learned. In suits made for the moon, here below, all around them, cold and quiet, no air, but life. There is life on the strange and silent, magnificent moon. Armstrong and Aldrin walk its rough, wide places. They step, they hop. As light as boys, they lope, they leap. In the dust and stone beneath their feet, no seed has ever grown, no root has ever reached. Still secrets wait there, the story of the moon. Where did it come from? How old is it? What is it made of? Not green cheese. And up above the ash-gray plains, the sky is pitch and empty, and all the stars stay hidden. That is how bright the moon is when you are standing on its face. So it's so bright that you can't see any of the stars in the sky. So there they both are. It's a great illustration right there. But in the blank and starless sky, high above, there is the earth, rushing oceans, racing clouds, swaying fields and forests, family, friends, and strangers, everyone you've ever known, everyone you might, the good and lonely, earth glowing in the sky. And they're down there. There's Earth. When their work is done, Armstrong, Collins, Aldrin fly back together from the moon, which rolls beneath, which rolls behind, letting them loose, letting them go. They fly back together through the dark with pictures, stones, and stories, with secrets of the sky, with a view of home from far away. Back to family, back to friends, back to warmth, to light, to trees, and blue water. Back from the moon, they land with a splash. I bet it felt so cool for Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to walk on the moon. It must have been such an exciting time in history. It's never been done before. It had never been done before. To warmth, to light, to home, at last. there's the moon. So remember, and then this just gives some great true facts about that time in May of 1961 when it all actually happened. So remember, you are going to complete the learned portion. You're going to write down 3 things that you learned from this book as we were reading. And then you're going to go on your classwork day 7 and you are going to type this out and turn it in. That's your activity and your assignment for this read aloud. All right, boys and girls, this was a great book. I really enjoyed reading it to you, and I will talk with you soon.